Sundered Doctrine contest mode reopens for 24 hours starting on Saturday at reset. That is 12 p.m. Eastern. That is in response to the 24 hours that PlayStation Network was down when contest mode was live the first go around. Bungie's being generous enough to let everybody back in for the 24 hours. So if you haven't gotten your contest mode clear, if you haven't gotten the emblem for it, this is your time to jump in and get it done. This also gives a pretty unique opportunity for a contest mode. The dungeon's been out for 2 weeks already. So you've had time to jump in on the encounters, go on normal, figure everything out, be able to actually go through them yourself, understand the mechanics, understand DPS. Because of all that, I'm not going to touch on those things a whole lot in this video. I'm going to mainly focus on the changes that contest mode brings. Primarily, that's going to be in the first encounter, since the biggest change is in that one. One thing that contest mode does is it adds tougher enemies. That's going to be in the form of more health, more damage. They're going to shoot more often, just be more aggressive in general. You also are going to pair this with revive tokens. In a group of 3, it means you only have 3 revive tokens. So deaths are a lot more punishing. You also have boss and rage mechanics. What that means is you only have 3 DPS phases to bring them down. If you don't get them killed after that 3rd DPS phase, and that's a wipe. All of these things just lead to the same result. You're going to want builds that offer high survivability and high lethality. You need to be a jack of all trades. You need to be able to do good DPS. You need to be able to do good ad clear. You need to not die. All of those things are important. They're going to be important for every encounter. All of those things, though, are going to be covered through guides that you're going to see for the regular dungeon mode, because those are going to be your meta loadouts. This is the time to not be cute, especially if you're going for your first clear. Use the meta stuff. You don't know what you're going to use on boss. I'll tell you what it's going to be. You're going to end up using 2 Queensbreaker, a Divinity, and a Well. That's going to get the job done. It's pretty comfortable. You have margin for error on there. There's no reason not to use that if you're going for your first clear. With all of that, we're going to move on to the first encounter. As I said, that one does have a little bit more of a unique change, and there's a lot of subtle things you can do in that encounter to make that challenge at contest modes a lot easier. In the first encounter, contest mode adds a timer for each phase. This is similar to Vesper's Host. You had a timer on the first encounter there. It was 6 minutes. That was an overall timer for the whole encounter. Here, it's a different timer for each phase. There's 3 phases. You get 2 minutes for the first phase, 4 for the second, and then they kind of shortchange you a little bit. You get 5.5 for the final phase. As long as you can get the laser pointed at the final wheel by the time that timer hits 0, then it'll count it. It will basically freeze the timer and go through its cycle, verifying that everything's good. And then if it is, you move on either to the next phase or complete the encounter. There are a lot of lenses on there, a lot of different paths. It's actually pretty flexible on how you can reach these wheels. But again, with that timer, you're going to want to be efficient with everything. Probably seen some maps that show all of these different paths, and there's a lot. But I went ahead and put together a map that has minimal paths. So these are all the paths that you should need to know, assuming that you are willing to, in round 3, figure out the rooms you need ahead of time before you even complete a path. Go over the map really quick. So the left starting lens, that will let you reach both of the left side rooms with 2 lenses. The middle lens will let you reach the far left and far right rooms with 2 lenses. And then the right lens will let you reach the far right room with 2 lenses. And then that bottom right one, you're going to need 3 lenses for that no matter what. But you're still going to want to use that rightmost lens if that room pops up. Using these paths, you also notice that the first empty lens spot on each path is the same. So both of the paths from each starting lens go to the same spot. So especially in round 3, since you're going to use all 3 paths, You can go ahead and place those down right away. You know you're going to use them. In the second round, it's a little bit of a gamble, but still at least 50% or better. First round, you're just going to want to hang on to them because between the three of you, you should have 3 lenses, and none of those paths require more than 3. So just hang on to them. Make sure you've got the correct path that you need. So that way you can just use those first lenses you get and get things set up properly. So for that third round, I mentioned that you need to figure out those rooms that you need early ahead of time before you can figure out a path. So how do you do that? You notice on the map, I mentioned something called statement logic, and that is the method that you could use for that third round, which is not using the truth speakers to figure out the rooms. You're actually going to use it based on the symbols. So at the bottom, there are possible statements. These are all of the possible ones, statements on the central wheel that I have encountered. If there are any others, feel free to let me know in the comments so I can get the map updated. But these are the ones that I have seen. Between the symbols that you get on the central wheel and the 4 symbols on the outer rooms, you can only make one of those statements on the central wheel. And remember that the ones on the central wheel are fixed. You can't switch them around or anything. So round 1, you only have to pick 1 symbol out of the 4 outer ones. Round 2, you're going to have 2. Round 3, you have nothing on the central wheel. So you're creating the statement from all 4 symbols from the outer rooms. I did do an example of that one. I ended up going counterclockwise, so I started with room 4 first, but my symbols, first one I had was kill. The second one was give. Third was guardian. And last was witness. So with those 4 symbols, I know that my only possible statement is guardian, kill, witness. So in that case, that was what I needed to use to complete the encounter. What the statement logic does is, number 1, it allows you to ensure you have access to those optimal paths that are on that map. And then number 2, it allows you to place lenses ahead of time if you end up with extra ones. Usually you're only going to have 1 person focused on getting the lens paths triggered. At most, you probably only have 2. There's going to be at least 1 person that's just running around killing things and acquiring lenses. So they can go, once they know all 3 paths, they can just get lenses and go drop them off. And even while somebody on your team is working on getting, say, the first lens path going, you can be setting up the second or the third lens path while that's all going on. This allows you to just really speed through the encounter. You might even reach the point where everyone just goes to the middle and you have everything all set up and you're just triggering the central lenses in the correct order and waiting for them to go the symbol on the central wheel, and then just turning all 3 of them on at once, basically, in order to do the encounter. Again, the timer is your opponent on this one, so the statement logic method for the third phase allows you to really speed up how fast that one can go. And since they give you 30 seconds less compared to the other 2, definitely helps. If you're having any issues getting those lenses down, so like the subjugators, just remember they are not boss level. That means that they can be hit with status effects, so they can be frozen, they can be blinded, they can be suspended. If you're having trouble with them, maybe get something that allows you to do one of those things into your kit to make it a little bit easier. Maybe a grenade launcher that has the disorienting grenades, or there are tons of options for stasis to apply freeze, or throw on a suspending grenade. They definitely can hit hard, but you get them hit with a status effect and they become a heck of a lot easier. The final thing to note is that explosive damage can trigger the switches above the lenses. Notice in these videos I've been using Punchy Hunter with Calibans. Calibans make stuff explode. If I punch an enemy too close to one of those lenses, then the Caliban's explosion will trigger the switch. And that has definitely happened to me more than once, hitting a switch that I didn't want triggering at the time. So just one final thing to keep in mind if you're wondering, like, why did a lens in the middle activate when you didn't specifically activate it? That's probably why. It was probably some sort of explosive damage. I don't think the enemies themselves exploding can trigger it, but any explosive damage that you create absolutely can. But that should be everything you need for the first encounter. So let's move on to the second. The second encounter of Sundered Doctrine puts you up against 4 Shriekers. You've got 4 wheels. In order to get into this room, you have already had to get a teaser on how the wheels operate. This is one where we'll go over some of the base mechanics at least a little bit. As again, you want to optimize the wheels here. So again, I'm not going to go over the symbols. I know the symbols will cause certain spawns or events to happen when the Shrieker scans them. Not going to go in depth about that, but so how the wheels operate, everyone should know it. Once you got into the room in the first place, you have that inner wheel that is spinning in the direction that the symbols will change. And those symbols can change when you dunk resonance. It will move based on the number of resonance you dunk. Then they can also move after a Shrieker scans it and completes the action that is associated with the symbol that it scanned. It will move in the direction that the wheel is spinning. So you can use that to your advantage a little bit. If you just get the wheel going in the shortest direction that you want to reach the symbol you want. So if you're trying to get stop on a wheel and you need to go clockwise for that. Make sure that that wheel is spinning clockwise when the Shrieker scans it, even if you don't have resonance to dunk yet. And then when it gets done with that scan, you'll be one spot closer, and thus need one less resonance to get it there. When it does move like this, the wheel cannot stop on kill. It will skip it every time. So it doesn't happen often, but keep an eye out for when you can take advantage of that. Again, because you can effectively move the wheel twice for free if you're doing it that way. Which again further reduces the amount of resonance you need to get in order to have all the wheels set up properly. One thing you want to pay attention for is, like the first encounter, explosive damage will trigger the switches. In my experience, it most often happens on the wheel in the middle right, because that is right where enemy spawns are. And so a lot of times people will pop them, hit them with an explosive, a grenade, anything that has explosive damage, which is pretty highly likely to trigger that switch. So that one you're going to want to pay special attention to whenever it gets scanned, especially if you're expecting it to move after that scan. Make sure it's going in the right direction. But you should do that in general for every wheel whenever possible. One other thing that because of the enrage timer, you're going to be making sure that you have pretty good DPS for this. You're going to be using a lot of ammo. You're going to want your damage phase to be as long as possible. So farming ammo is going to be a good thing to do. You're probably going to want to have at least with a Cenotaph Warlock or somebody with Aeons. Cenotaph in particular can turn in case you get an ogre spawn, you don't ever want them to spawn, especially in contest mode, but it makes them not necessarily a death sentence on contest, because you can then use heavy if they're marked to take them down, and you should get more heavy back than you used to kill them. You can do that for both of them. Again, I was using, I think, Grand Overture on my run, and I usually was able to get them down in just a handful of shots, and was always getting usually about double what I spent back on killing them. So something to definitely keep in mind. Probably going to want to have at least one person generating ammo, if not 2. Again, due to with those limited damage phases. So one normal mode strategy that I know exists, especially for solo, is to put kill on the rightmost wheel and have a super short damage phase and just use burst damage guns. So like Parasite, maybe like, in like a one-off super, like a Thunder Crash or a Golden Gun. It's obviously not going to work in contest mode with only having 3 damage phases. So you're going to want to put kill on the leftmost wheel, and I would highly recommend putting stop on the other 3. That will give you a relatively uncontested damage phase. You will have at least 1 dread spawn, likely just 1. Slight possibility to get 2. But yeah, you're gonna want to deal with those quickly, because they will use that strand pull and pull people away from the well out into the open. So I would recommend 1 person being on an ad clear super. At contest clear, I ran the Strand Hunter super, so as soon as they spawn, pop the super, clear the group in front, and then go and clear the other 2 groups. Generally should be able to do that before the super's done, get back into the well, and get back to shooting with your teammates. But that's pretty much it. Again, the second encounter is brutal. It is the toughest one of the dungeon, but it is brutal mainly because of contest mode's general additions, which is just the tougher enemies, tougher bosses, and then the limited DPS phases. So you need to be efficient with killing. You need to be able to stay alive while you're doing that, and then you need to, when you do have damage, be able to hit the boss very hard and do it for quite a while, because these are long damage phases, probably the longest damage phase I think of any boss in the game. But you get all those things down, you'll take down the Shrieker and be able to move on to the final boss. Boss encounter. Final encounter in the Sundered Doctrine dungeon. If you got here, as long as you got here with at least a little bit of extra time, you should be feeling pretty good about getting that clear. This encounter is, in my opinion, definitely easier than the Shrieker boss. Due partially in part to the fact that you have unlimited time to initiate your damage phases. With the Shrieker boss, there is a like an internal timer. Like if you load up all of the, let it go through, I think it's 4 cycles of scans. And you get all 4 symbols on those back totems, and then those are allowed to reset. That does, in contest mode, count as a damage phase against you. There is nothing of that sort in this encounter. You can take as much time as you want to make sure that you are getting everything done. So if that means running as a full group, going and staying together the entire time to help survivability out, then go ahead and do that. Obviously that takes more time to set everything up, but if that's what you need to do to survive, you can do that. If you are comfortable splitting up and don't have an issue with that, then you can get things done a little bit faster. But again, this is just the basic contest mode challenge of stay alive and do good damage when you get the opportunity to do so. The big things to avoid, the door for the left room, the one that you have to shoot to open up. If you are by yourself, I would probably avoid using a primary on it. That'll keep you there for a little longer than is generally safe in contest mode. I would highly recommend using your secondary weapon, whether that be shotgun, a fusion, whatever. Higher damage weapons do open the door faster. I was running it, use a shotgun, 3 to 4 shots from the shotgun, and the door is wide open. I can waltz right through. The other thing to be careful of, whenever you're breaking the locks on the lenses and the switches, they release the threadlings. Those, in my experience, were the deadliest things in there, outside of the boss. And they chase you for a long time. So make sure that you keep your distance, or if you're a little closer, make sure when you pop it, you run and you keep running, because they hit very hard. It's very easy to get killed. by one of the other enemies popping you a couple times and then the threadling catching you, or vice versa. That's really it for this encounter. Again, I'm expecting you already know how to run through this. You know how to initiate damage. I'm not going to go over those. This encounter, again, it's easier than the second. If you got here, you can definitely beat it. Just be patient as you need to be. You know, make sure you're starting damage when everybody's ready. Don't just I would say don't get greedy, but again, you have limited damage phases, so it's like. But again, with 2 Queen's Breakers, a Divinity, and a Well, you don't even need to be super greedy. You can, at the end of damage phase, put yourself in a position that allows you to keep shooting him, even while the fire is going on. If you can do that, great. If you can't, wouldn't even worry about it. But again, if you got here, you can absolutely beat this encounter. And that's everything. So again, survivability. Survivability is huge. Being able to kill stuff in groups, anything that lets you kill in groups, chain explosions, you know, the primary weapons, the like Volt Shot, built-in feedback, ignitions, all of that stuff works great. Just be careful, be efficient, and you'll get it done. Hope this video helped you out. Did, feel free to let me know. Love to hear about people getting their contest clears. But hey, good luck, take care, and we'll see you on the next one.